Afternoon, YouTubers. What is it? It's the 26th, I think. It's a Sunday, October. I thought I'd put up a little video because, well, first of all, welcome to the Bubba Continuum. I got to start remember to say the name of my channel. I thought I'd put up another channel, YouTube, because it's been a while since I put up a video. People may wonder where I've gone to. There are actually a couple of people that watch. I've been doing a welding project, a fabricating project, is what I should call it. I'm taking a Harbor Freight toolbox and I'm turning it into a welding cart. And this should be like a one-day job, but I needed some metric fasteners, which are not easy to get here. I had to go all over the county trying to find metric bolts. And there were little changes in the design that I made and so forth that slowed things down. I just didn't have all the materials I wanted at a given time. There was a tool I had to buy. So a 1 to 2 day project, not including paint, is stretching out into 2 weeks. And I just neglected YouTube for that reason, because I'm shooting video and I'm not doing anything with it. But I thought I'd talk today about something that's actually important, and that is freedom of speech. If you want freedom of speech, you really need to vote for Donald Trump, and you need to vote for Republican senators and congressmen. You really need to do this. It's really weird. Historically, people have claimed that conservatives have been all for suppression of free speech. And the main reason they've said that is that conservatives are more likely to stand up for the suppression of obscenity. People on the left have this idea that the First Amendment, which guarantees our freedom of speech, was written to protect people who produce pornography. They think it was written to protect people who write dirty books, you know, Henry Miller, people like that, Erica Jong. You may not even know who these people are. We're so used to hearing about people like that, people like Larry Flint, we don't think about the real purpose of the First Amendment, our First Amendment speech protection. If Thomas Jefferson had sat down at a computer and seen what's available to us now, the First Amendment would be longer. I'll put it that way. He did not contemplate protecting pornography. There are certain search terms you just can't put into the internet anymore. You know, I'm afraid to mention one because people will start tittering. Well, there's a good example. Put that word in. I'll bet something weird comes up. Sometimes you'll type something in that seems completely innocent at first, and then immediately you'll see pornography that's just beyond belief. I mean, the sheer creativity of it, that somebody would even be aroused by that is astonishing. So, the purpose of the First Amendment, our speech protection, is to protect political speech. That's the main reason. Obviously, political speech was not protected very well in Europe prior to the founding of America, and this was a problem. People tended to be rounded up and taken to places like the Bastille and the Tower of London, and it was a bad deal for everybody, except those in power. So we had a pretty good situation for a couple of hundred years. We were pretty much able to say what we wanted to about politics. But a few years ago, of course, we started moving on to the internet. And a small group of people suddenly got control of the dissemination of information in the United States, and pretty much worldwide. And I don't know how long ago I started predicting this, but it was at least 5 years ago I started telling people free speech is going to disappear, free speech is going to disappear. Why did I say that? Because I'm an attorney. And I knew that the First Amendment only applies to the government. So if you want to stand in your yard with a bullhorn and yell, "Vote for Trump," the government can't do anything about it unless you're violating a noise ordinance. There's nothing they can do. But Google's not the government. Facebook is not the government. Twitter is not the government. They're not bound by the First Amendment. They can do whatever they want. They can say from now on only left-handed people can tweet or post on Facebook or have YouTube videos, and that's it, you know. Their decision stands. The only reason they allow people they don't like to use their platforms is because they think it's good for business. Obviously, they will get in trouble if they come out and flat out state that they're banning conservatives, banning Christians. They don't want to be perceived as bad guys. So what do? They do things like shadow banning. And of course they do. Sometimes they do censor people outright. They've done it to Trump. They've done it to the New York Post. There's this huge story about Joe Biden's son, who's apparently as crooked as a dog's hind leg. And he has involved Joe Biden in his business in China, which is highly suspect. And Twitter and Facebook, they're doing their best to prevent this information to get out. And it's very important information. What people have said is, of course, they said, what if it was Don Trump Jr.? It would be on the cover of every newspaper in the United States. It would be on Facebook. It would be on Twitter. They'd be promoting it. We all know this. So what I'm saying is conservatives are now the driving force in the preservation of our right to free speech. We may not be all that excited about promoting obscenity, but when it comes to political speech and religious speech, we're pretty much the only game in town. It's very weird how leftists have worked so hard to get rid of free speech while holding themselves out as the major proponents of free speech. But they really never have been. They've been pushing things like speech codes on college campuses for years. They've been saying you can't say this and you can't say that. And they've been trying to push for hate speech laws, which is ridiculous. You should be able to say any racist, mean thing you want to say as long as you're not threatening somebody, as long as you're not committing a terroristic threat or, calling for the overthrow of the government. There's certain things freedom of speech doesn't apply to. You should, if you want to be a racist and put on a sheet and live in your mom's trailer and, call yourself the Grand Wizard, that should be legal. Because the alternative is worse. Making it illegal leads to the suppression of other types of speech that are very valuable. You don't want a position where somebody is put in charge to review everything and decide what goes through and what doesn't go through. Obviously, that person's biases are going to end up controlling the flow of information. And that's the situation we find ourselves in now. I just saw that a YouTube channel that I sometimes watch is being shadow banned. And what they're doing is whenever his videos start to ramp up, he used to get like at least, I think he says 250,000 views per video. And he's doing the same thing he's always done. And this is an election season, and we're getting right up on the election. So you'd think his videos would be more popular than ever. And what's going on is his videos, you can look at the graph, his videos will start to increase in views, and then they just kind of level off and die. They do this kind of thing, and they deny it all the time, which is amazing because whenever insiders come out and talk about this, they admit that they can do it. And the fact is, if there's some young woman with hair that's blue on one side, or some guy with a man bun and wearing a dress, somewhere in California sitting at a keyboard in a cubicle, and these people don't like what I'm saying, they can get rid of it. They can stifle it. They can see to it that virtually nobody hears about it. Now, I'm sure they've done this already. I used to talk about coronavirus all the time. And YouTube had a policy of kind of stifling the coronavirus stuff. It's a bad situation to be in. Speech is very important. Speech is more important than action when it comes to driving the universe. God created the universe through speech. He didn't get a shovel and start piling up dirt to create the earth. He spoke and the earth existed. If you're sentenced to prison or sentenced to death, what does that? Where does that power come from? Well, it's exercised through speech, through words. The judge says, "I sentence you," and he writes it down. And because of those words, they put the electrodes on your head, and then or the needle in your arm, and you're gone. Words are extremely important. Words control your life. What's your driver's license? It's a bunch of words on a card, and it says you can drive. And if you don't have it, you can't. So we're facing a future in which you have to choose between a party that promotes freedom of speech and a party that's destroying it. So what if conservatives, maybe you're a leftist, maybe you disagree with conservatives, but what if a conservative out there somewhere comes up with something you really need to hear, and he can't get it to you because your overseers have decided that it's not fit for you to read? That should concern you. Or what if you're a leftist and there's another leftist, and the other leftist is more right than you are, and he's got something important to say that could change your life, but I don't know, maybe he's for Bernie and you're for Hillary, or he's for Bernie and you're for Biden, and the young lady with the blue hair on one side in a cubicle in California doesn't like Biden. You may never get to hear it. Something leftists don't understand, I guess, is that leftism has always been fragmented. You can look up what happened to Leon Trotsky if you don't believe that. He was killed by leftists. He was a huge leader in the early communist movement, and he got an ice pick in the head for an ice axe in the head for that from another leftist. So anyway, you can say to yourself, well, it's okay if they do this, conservatives and Christians, because I'm not in either of those groups, but your little corner of leftism, it could be next. It could be next. And I would say, just to the girl with the blue hair and the guy with the man bun and the skirt, if you're listening, I would say you need to know that I know you can control my viewership. You can control the number of people that get to hear what I say. And it may be that what I'm saying will never reach anybody. Maybe it'll only reach 15, 20 people. And you may say to yourself, this guy believes in God, and he's got this channel, and he thinks he's doing good for God. But I'll see to it that never gets out. So if I can do that, how can God be on this guy's side? And something you need to know is sometimes God lets his servants do things, not so they'll have the desired effect you would expect, but so that the people who thwart them and the spirits that thwart them can be judged. So you may succeed in preventing anybody from hearing me, but at the same time, you're providing evidence that's eventually going to be used against you when you die. And it will not be looked on kindly. Sometimes things happen for an obvious purpose, and sometimes they happen just so evidence can be provided for judgment later. A lot of people don't get that. You need to decide what's worth more to you. 4 years of relief from Trump because you don't like him personally, or the end of free speech, and putting your trust in people that may decide to come after you next. They're not above it. You're not special. If Joe Biden is elected, the people who are against free speech will be in power. Right now, Trump is trying to take on the censors, the gatekeepers, the people who rule what I now call the disinformation superhighway, because that's what it is now. Trump's trying to take them on. Republican senators are trying to take them on. And if you vote against Trump, you're going to be voting for the censors. There's going to be nobody between you and them. So if you trust other people that much, think about your little leftist friends who disagree with you about things. Think about the opinions that you have that you're pretty sure are right, and how you'd feel if you couldn't put those opinions before the public, or if people you listen to couldn't do it. You could be next. It's very important. So I hope people will think about this and vote for the people who are trying to save your right to express yourself. And you can say, yeah, you still got the right to free speech. You can still say whatever you want. Sure, you can say it in your backyard. You can say it at a restaurant, at a table quietly. You can get a Xerox machine. I shouldn't say Xerox machine. How old am I? You can take your printer and print out leaflets and pamphlets, and you can put them up on community bulletin boards. But that's not meaningful speech. When you reach 50 people, that's not meaningful. When you reach 750,000 on YouTube, that's meaningful. What they're doing now, it's not so much that they're taking away our right to free speech. It's more that they're giving an expanded right of free speech to our enemies, and they're not affording the same thing to us, and they're hiding behind the fact that the First Amendment does not apply to them. So remember, when the future comes, maybe you'll wake up, maybe you'll change your mind, maybe you'll decide to become a conservative, maybe you'll become a Christian, maybe your views will change, or maybe the leftists that are in some faction other than yours will take power and they'll be persecuting you. Remember, in the future, if you vote for Biden, this is what you ask for. You have no right to complain. You begged for it. Not only won't you have the right to complain, you really won't have the ability to complain in any significant way because no one's going to be able to hear you. So I hope you think about this and make the right decision.